Welcome back to Well, That's Interesting, the oh-so-delicious edition. Today is episode 239. For a certain spider, eating siblings is taboo unless they're dead, and given the choice, cockatoos use condiments to flavor food. My friends, I know spiders can be a touchy, or rather a let's not touch at all kind of topic, and 5 years ago, before I started this podcast, I'd be with you on that. Fucking spiders? No thank you. But year after year, as I poked my gorgeous nose into the latest wacky discoveries, cases on spiders kept appearing, and I couldn't help but share what I learned about them. New research has totally blown my mind and transformed my creepy feelings of them into a kind of respect that also leaves me feeling creepy. Baby steps. For example, of the 15 or so episodes where we've spoken about these creatures, there was episode 226. Let's talk about the largest known eagle to ever exist and the discovery of male spiders that care for their young. It aired just this past February. It was then we learned about Rafael Reis Moura of the Federal University of Uberlândia in Brazil and his team, who did a little digging in a eucalyptus plantation where they witnessed a first. Male spiders of the species Manogia poricea build webs to protect their unhatched egg sacs and take it further by actually fighting off predators who feel like making omelets. If the female of the pair is eaten herself, these dads take it up another notch and become the sole provider and guardian. Way the fuck back. In episode 047, we brought up Martin Neifler, a research fellow at the University of Basel in Switzerland who gathered at least 95 well-documented cases of spiders feeding off plants and plant parts. Yeah, I'm talking about vegan spiders. They nibbled on everything from nectar to sap to small fruiting bodies, end quote, from his review published in the Journal of Arachnology. Now, spiders aren't built to live on plant parts alone, but in a time of crisis, like a food shortage, they'll opt for a bump of energy-rich nectar and get covered in pollen while doing so. Of those documented cases, 60% were tiny jumping spiders, and I have an adorable photo of one just covered in hibiscus pollen over today's post on the old socials. It is giving Pixar energy. You are welcome. And speaking of food, in the first half of the show, labyrinth spiders, aka Agelena labyrinthica. As the name suggests, these babies spin funnel webs, and they don't fuck around. In the rough, uncut grasslands across Europe, they weave these large, dare I say, conspicuous homes that are so thick in places, they appear like white tubes. Now, this may be terrifying for some, but adults are barely an inch long, and at any age, they want nothing to do with you. All they want to do is go on their merry way and survive. And to do so, this species has quite the interesting adaptation. We will meet researchers from the University of Toulouse in France and the French National Center for Scientific Research who conducted an experiment whose findings suggest, after hatching, these creatures give off social cues that may say something like, "Bro, don't eat me." Even when starving, these brothers and sisters get along better than most of us with siblings under normal circumstances. However, when one dies, dinner is served. We will learn more fun facts about this spider. We will get into the experiment that, I shit you not, is more hardcore than any Mad Max arena. We will get into the cannibalism, its frequency and surprising lack thereof, and we shall see the impact of solitary confinement and how it breaks down social contracts. Yeah, we're going to look at what happens when separated and completely isolated spiders are introduced to their siblings. This is going to be way more intense than you think. Then after the break, I'm just going to go ahead and say it. In a recent study, cognitive biologists from the Messerelli Research Institute at the University of Veterinary Medicine in Vienna discovered that some cockatoos like to adjust the taste of their food. And they do so with their own preferred condiments. And this story is as adorable as you think. My friends, one cannot live on dry cooked pasta alone, and the cockatoos I will introduce you to prove it. We will learn how all sorts of animals alter their food to make consumption easier. We will get into why in the holy hell these birds were given a selection of yogurts. And then we will witness a rare event. And by rare, I mean it. We will see cockatoos altering their food solely for flavor. A behavior only seen in us humans and one type of monkey, Japanese macaques. That's it. We will get into the experiments, and it will bring you fucking joy. And we all need that. In the meantime, hi, I'm Jill Chacha, and if this is your first time listening, welcome to the flock, my spiral-shaped business goose. To begin, I'm going to ask you to slip into this late summer fantasy. So please, if you will, imagine you, me, and the rest of the flock lying oh so peacefully on our backs within the rolling grasslands of southern and central Europe. Above us is a clear blue sky, the sun is shining, there's a gentle as fuck breeze. And not one of us has a clue that surrounding our midday moment of zen are countless adult female Agelina labyrinthicas, mama spiders, whose 1 to 3 egg sacs, each containing an average of 80 to 120 eggs, have just hatched. And now that I've ruined this for you, feel free to head on over to today's post over at the old social medias for an actual photo of A. labyrinthica chilling in her funnel with hundreds of kids. Now, if you don't want to look, I get it. Instead, here are more fun facts about the star of this half of the show. These jam-packed homesteads are spun between leaves of grass, and depending on the landscape, they can be found as high up as 2 to 5 feet off the ground. This is a lot of work for a creature who, as an adult female, grows only to half an inch, while the male counterpart is even smaller, at 3/10 to 4/10 of an inch. Although generally brown in color, they do have some fancy pants tuxedo lines. 2 black vertical lines running down the length of their body, and a few horizontal ones across the abdomen, which is the bulby part that contains the silk glands. In our fantasy, it was late summer, and that's when all their egg sacs crack open with baby spider goodness. And get this. Even though these spiderlings are well equipped to hunt and catch insects like flies within days of hatching, they do as we did. They chill, living off the egg yolk from the eggs they hatched from. They keep this gooey deliciousness in that abdomen as well. Now, this full-ass house actually remains as such for an astonishing several months, as the kids remain in the funnel with mom over winter before emerging in spring. That is months of spiderlings growing and living together without resorting to, well, getting chompy. In fact, A. labyrinthica is, quote, only 20 of the more than 53,000 known types of spiders that are gregarious. Or rather, they tolerate one another not only as juveniles, but throughout their adult lives in societies of up to thousands of individuals. End quote, from James Deneen of New Scientist. Yes, my peaceful business goose, these spiders are the very few known spiders that don't engage in hunting their siblings. Now, if this raises a curious eyebrow, you're not alone. In fact, with us in those spider-filled grassy fields was Raphael Ginson at the University of Toulouse in France, and his colleague Antoine Lempereur, who rolled over and whispered into our ears, hey, if we study A. labyrinthica, we could shed a light on the evolution of social spiders. Maybe if we get them in a lab and run a few experiments to see how they behave, we can figure out what, if anything, is driving this amicable situation, and why. Now, that scene was uncomfortable and a fantasy, but the study that they performed was very much a reality. And boy howdy, it was something. Please, join me now, will you, at the French National Center for Scientific Research, after which Raphael and Antony had what I can only assume was the goddamn time of their lives, collecting a total of 17 labyrinth spider egg sacs from southwest France. Now, according to previous observations of these arachnids back in 2016 from a study called Early Experience and Social Performance in Spiderlings, sibling tolerance lasted quite a long time, even under a crazy situation. After 3 months of no food, zilch, nothing, 3 months, there was still an 80% survival rate within a united brood. That is what got Raphael and Antony a-thinking. What if a hungry brood didn't stay together? What would happen if some were separated and then reunited with the group? Would they recognize one another as siblings? And if so, would they still avoid cannibalism? Also, would siblings rear together when facing each other one-on-one? Would they avoid cannibalism as well? Now, if you said, "Damn, Jill, the only way to answer these brutal questions is to create some kind of post-apocalyptic arena where two spiders go in and we see if one or more spiders come out." If you said that, you're right. As reported by their awesomely titled study, When Sibling Tolerance Meets Cannibalism of the Dead in Spiderlings, newborn spiderlings from 3 egg sacs were randomly assigned to one of 2 categories, isolated or grouped. 140 spiders got their own individual solitary digs, which was a transparent petri dish, while the rest were placed into 35 groups of 4 in identical dishes. Throughout the experiment, not one spider got a morsel of food. But they were misted with water 3 times a week, so other than a hydrating shower, no feedings were permitted. From here, researchers waited 20 days, when the young graduated to juvenile status. And now, the games could begin. And the games would go as follows. At all times, 2 spiders would face one another in a totally new container, an arena, if you will. 2 solitary, 2 grouped, and 1 solitary with 1 grouped spider. And like any anticipated sporting event, every moment would be recorded and analyzed into oblivion. Let's get into the parameters and the rules. From the study, quote, "We filmed the pairs for 8 hours using a camera, and for 4 consecutive days, we then inspected each arena to record any deaths. The level of aggression was assessed from the videos considering the first 20 interactions. We defined interaction as any encounter between 2 individuals whose distance is less than 1 body length. For each interaction, we assessed whether it was aggressive or not. We considered the following behaviors to be aggressive: a bite attempt, when one individual raised its legs and lunged forward; a chase, when one individual moved rapidly towards the other; or a fight, when both individuals attacked and bit each other. For each pair, we counted the number of aggressive interactions, which could range between 0 and 20. End quote. So, after 27 pairs of solitary spiders and 20 pairs of siblings in groups were placed in an MMA environment, and the footage was reviewed, what did they find? Drumroll, please. Thank you in the back. My friends, although fucking starving, spiders raised in groups were still tolerant with each other. But the spiders raised in isolation, that was a whole other can of worms. They gave no fucks when it came to relationships. Let's get into the wild numbers. According to the study, aggressive interactions were observed in 96% of pairs composed of spiders raised in isolation, compared to just 45% of pairs containing individuals kept in groups for 20 days. That is huge. Cannibalism, which is what we're here for, was more intense in pairs of spiders reared in isolation than those reared in groups. Only 10% of pairs, 10% of pairs of individuals from a group showed cannibalism within 96 hours, compared to around 50% in arenas containing 2 spiderlings reared in isolation. Yeah. Spiders that didn't grow up in a group totally tried to or succeeded at eating the other. The researchers believe, to no one's surprise, this is because social isolation reduces sensitivity to social signals. And that is what may be in play here to prevent cannibalism, a social cue of some kind. And the team tested this in a way fitting for such a paper. They dangled dead siblings in front of the live ones. Now, although flies were offered and consumed faster than dead spiders in all treatments, around half of the dead spiders on the menu were eaten within the first hour. and it didn't matter if the spider eating was reared in a group or completely alone. So the question we must ask, are hatchlings giving off a visual cue that they're siblings? Well, Raphael and Anthony tested this possibility by simply turning off the lights. For real. And the results were exactly the same. So signs were now pointing to a chemical cue of some kind, which is also supported by the number of dead spiders consumed. At death, such a signal, quote, could stop being produced. Although another possibility is that the spiders sense vibrations that indicate their sibling is alive, end quote, Raphael said to New Scientist in an interview. So can you imagine, like a Morse code or a chemical puff? Which, you know what that means. Researchers now have to investigate the possibility of each and then the makeup of this signal. This hidden language might just be decoded soon, which is nearly as amazing as the serendipitous fact that I happen to be writing these notes on International Siblings Day, Thursday, April 10th. That is fucking crazy. I did not plan it. But the universe is funny like that. After the break, we're leaving cannibalism for pasta. And personally, I prefer marinara or puttanesca on mine. But this all comes down to taste. I'm talking about pasta, by the way, not bodies. For a select group of captive gothins, the cockatoos, blueberry soy yogurt is their preferred sauce. Adorable animals making meals their way is next. So please, stay tuned.
Whatever the occasion, effortless elegance is right this way. Because Hilton brings you new ways to stay courtesy of the Nomad London. And it doesn't stop at award-winning dining in a space draped in velvet and illuminated by vintage chandeliers. No, this day goes beyond with unparalleled personalized service and attentive hospitality. Oh, and did we mention the Nomad London can be booked using your Hilton Honors points at Hilton.com? Hilton, for this day.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. When your computer breaks, you don't wait for it to magically start working again. You fix the problem. So why wait to hire the people your company desperately needs? Use Indeed's sponsored jobs to hire top talent fast. And even better, you only pay for results. There's no need to wait. Speed up your hiring with a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
And we're back. We are so back. And my friends, we're not the only species that likes to dip. As noted in the study we're about to dive into, dunking is the scientific term for when an animal dips their food in another medium before eating it. Yes, you heard me right. Various species have joined us on the dipping train. Apes, river otters, boars, raccoons, crows, magpies, and a number of other bird species, horses, for Christ's sake, are just a few on the list of creatures that have been documented sticking food, most frequently, in water. Scientists have given this behavior a gander for decades and have come up with 5 possible explanations for dunking. There's cleaning, drowning prey, transporting liquid, soaking until the food is soft and edible, and finally, flavoring. Now, some of these may sound a little bit more surprising than others, like cleaning, for example. Yes, some birds, primates, otters, even our pig friends, rats and mice have been seen removing dirt, parasites, and gnarly bits from food using H2O. And then there's flavoring. If this shocked you the most, you are right. This category, my equally delicious business goose, is the rarest of the rare. Up until 5 minutes ago, the only known species that gave their food pizzazz was us humans and a very special monkey on a very special island. Let's have a listen to an audio clip from today's study titled Innovative Flavoring Behavior in Gotham's Cockatoos about who else is on this hyper-exclusive culinary list. Here we go.
Food flavoring behavior is by our knowledge only described in one other species, On the Japanese island of Koshima, Japanese macaques have been observed dunking sweet potatoes in salt water. This behavior was described as dipping the potato into salt water, gnawing it once or twice, and then repeating this behavior. Although this behavior has been a monumental example of cultural behavior in animals, other factors, such as the food provisioning location and the drying up of the freshwater brook, could have also caused the shift to dunk in salt seawater. Therefore, this singularly flavoring example has not been experimentally confirmed. We therefore set out to investigate.
How goddamn exciting. Japanese macaques have been our only neighbors in Flavor Town since the 1950s, when researchers on Koshima Island observed a young female macaque named Emo washing sweet potatoes in a nearby stream. Emo was a revolutionary. She was the primate equivalent of a Michelin star chef, and I am not kidding. Emo's behavior was learned and imitated by other macaques of her troop. And this idea subsequently spread to other groups of macaques on Koshima Island, who were then inspired to use salt water to fucking salt their potatoes. To this day, these monkeys can be seen removing sand and dirt from their meals using their hands and fresh water, and then dunking those sweet, sweet taters in the nearby ocean. So they prep and then flavor their food. Keeping all of this in mind, join me, will you, on a November morning in 2022 at the Goffin Lab at University of Veterinary Medicine, Vienna, where breakfast was being served. Now, the buffet before us is not for any humans at this facility. It is strictly for the birds. The Goffins, the classic all-white parrots whose feathery head crest occasionally pops off to indicate different emotions or intentions, and whose intelligence is always leaving scientists just amazed. For example, you're going to want to sit for this. Just last year, Northeastern University researcher Jen Cunha was able to teach her 11-year-old cockatoo to read and write basic fucking words. It's horrifying and impressive. Ellie can select up to 14 letters on a touchpad with her beak. Yeah, to communicate a wide array of complex feelings and requests on a tablet. And there's more. As reported by news.northeastern.edu, quote, she can tell Cunha she's hungry and for what treats. When she's feeling scared, when she's happy, and when she wants to read a book or listen to music. During the conversation with journalist Schuyler Velasco, you know the one, Ellie tapped a sequence of images on the screen to ask for a treat of sunflower seeds. When she got them, she tapped on the on-screen buttons to make the tablet say yum and happy in a frenzied succession. Later, she requested music, then piano, and Beethoven. End quote. Well, now that you feel uncomfortable, let's head back to breakfast, which was served around 11 a.m., consisting of a weekly cycle switching between scrambled eggs, cooked potatoes and carrots with a teaspoon of palm oil, cooked cauliflower, and noodles of whole grain fusilli. I mean, damn, I was sold, but it gets even better. According to the study, the food was served alongside a few spoonfuls of soy yogurt of various flavors and fresh fruit. That's fucking great. Now, on this particular day, researchers Jeroen Stefan Zawald and Alice Asberg, well, they were also jealous and in attendance as they observed two cockatoos named Irene and Renke dunking chunks of cooked potato into blueberry-flavored soy yogurt. Now, like we said a moment ago, animals have a number of reasons to do the dunk, including cleaning and soaking, but those don't make sense here. The potato was already clean and cooked, like cooked to perfection. They could easily slice their beak through it. So what the fuck is going on here? Inspired, the very next month, our Hot for Cockatoos duo set up a recorded experiment where 18 of the birds were served 14 consecutive breakfasts, each 30 minutes in length, and they out-buffeted all the buffets before them. All options were on the table, or rather on the floor. If you head on over to our social media stuffs and tap on today's post, you'll see the copious amounts of bowls. The birds were presented with a food bowl filled with either cooked potatoes, carrots, cooked cauliflower, and cooked pasta, and 3 dunking options: fresh water, blueberry soy yogurt, and neutral soy yogurt as a control. So, after the duo analyzed which individuals were dunking, how often, which food items they dunked, in which mediums, and for how long they left the food in that medium, what the fuck did they find? Drumroll, please. Thank you again in the back. A whopping 9 out of the 18 birds chose to dunk specifically the fusilli pasta in the blueberry soy yogurt only. And the possible explanations as to why will leave your heart satiated. Quote, the birds in the experiment had a problem that their food was not tasty enough, and so they went to the yogurt, really dunked it in like we would do with fries and ketchup, and then they ate it together. And if they ran out, they did it again. End quote, said Jeroen in an interview with Nicola Davis of The Guardian. I know. Are you not a withering puddle on the floor right now? It's excruciating and wonderful. And now officially, Goffin's cockatoos join us on the oh-so-chic list of species that flavor their food. And for the love of God, I'm going to try not to explode with joy as I break down this discovery further with evidence. Being that half of the cockatoos, and not all, performed this act, suggests that, like with the Japanese macaques, that this is a learned behavior that caught on and is put to use when necessary. We can also rule out soaking as a reason because the birds never dunked their food into the water and only dunked their food in soy yogurt for about 3 seconds, as opposed to previous observations of cockatoos dunking dry food in water for more than 20 seconds. So overall, what dips were had were in yogurt, and the dip was quick, as like what we do with chips and guac or fries and mustard. Yeah, I like spicy mustard with my fries. Go to hell if you don't. Adorably and relatable, carrots and cauliflower were never dunked and rarely eaten, showing a clear preference not only for pasta, but for dressed pasta. It seems as though they truly enjoy the combo, and not one over the other. As the duo told The Guardian, quote, they ate the food and the yogurt together, and never licked the yogurt off before eating the food, indicating their preference for the combination of both food items, end quote. Oh, and it gets better, by the way. Not only have these birds transformed their aviary into an Italian restaurant, some had distinct individual methods on how to apply the yogurt. There is an entire section of the study dedicated to, quote, dunking techniques, featuring Kiwi and Titus, 2 birds, where the latter performs a pick up, rotate, drop, and repeat approach, and the former does a drag and press kind of thing. So, my friends, if you've ever mixed items together in a bowl, or dredged something in egg and flour to fry it, you've done these methods too. We do the same thing. It's wild. Oh, and by the way, the authors went as far as testing whether the birds simply liked the bluish-purplish color of the yogurt, and that explained their choice. They presented the cockatoos with 2 cubes of similar colors to those of the yogurts, but overall, the bird's probability of choosing one color over the other was not significantly different from chance. So once again, all signs point to Flavortown. Population, you, me, some wild-looking monkeys, and a hyper-intelligent bird with a Swiss Army knife for a beak and a taste for the finer things in life. I like it here. And thank you for listening, rating, subscribing, telling your friends about cannibalism. Again, we do this multiple times a month. At this point, your friends are expecting it and are really disappointed when you don't talk about cannibalism, and then shift quickly to cockatoos eating pasta. It's a natural segue. And a flavorful thanks to the folks over at Airwave Media, the podcast network to which WTI belongs. If you love this show, and you do, you love the other podcasts in this family. And please, stay interesting.